Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to a new video. So this is a question I've been getting pretty much every single day, whether it's from YouTube or my Instagram. Obviously you guys know that I am parting or have parted out my STI, and it's at the point where I'm getting it ready to sell and put up for sale and everything. And a lot of people have been asking me, what am I moving to next? One of the main reasons why I haven't answered that question in full yet is because I wasn't 100% sure. I do have quite a few cars that I am interested in. I didn't want to answer anybody when I personally didn't know 100% because I don't want to make a promise or let somebody know and then go a different route. I told myself that once I figured this out and got an idea of where I wanted to be and where I wanted to go, I'll make a video explaining everything, going over my options and as to why those are the choices that I'm thinking about. So before we get into this video and start going over the few options that I'm considering, I wanted to go over a few points just so you guys get some context, just so you guys get an idea of why I'm kind of moving away from the STI into something else. Just a quick synopsis as to how I have an STI currently. Back in 2017, I wanted to get back into fun cars. I wanted something all-wheel drive, 4 doors, manual, something relatively cheap to maintain and modify, and something fun. The STI just checked all the boxes for me. It was a car that I absolutely loved, and I've owned this car for the past 6 years. And in that time, I was very fortunate enough to be able to pick up a daily driver. You guys know my F-150, my truck, and that is something that I drive every single day. And since then, the STI sits in the garage, and it has become a garage queen solely. So I only take it out on nice, warm, dry days, which is kind of crazy because the STI and WRXs in general are kind of made for inclement weather. I have owned multiple Subarus in the past. I know what it's like to drive these cars in the winter, but for this one specifically, it meant a lot to me. It's very special to me. And over the years, as I modified it, I just felt more comfortable keeping it at home, clean in the garage while I drove my F-150. Another quick thing I wanted to mention is that I told myself when I got this car, I would never, ever, ever sell it unless it was for a big step forward. And what I mean by that is I don't want to make lateral moves. I don't want to sell the STI and then go get myself a Golf R. Granted, the Golf R is a fantastic car. It's definitely something that I would love to experience at some point. I have driven them, but I've never owned one. But it's just an example of what I'm talking about. It's a similar type of car. All-wheel drive, 4 doors, 4-cylinder turbo. Granted, it's a very, very different experience. It's still a very similar type of car. So I kept that mindset over the last 6 years, and I said I would not let this car go unless it was for a big step forward in my car journey, and it was something that I felt like it was worth letting this car go. So here we are 6 years later. I'm ready to let the STI go. I have loved this car dearly, but I am looking to move to a different option. I'm looking to try new experiences, a new car, a new chassis, something that I necessarily maybe never tried before. I love cars. I want to learn, and I want to experience as many different types of cars as I possibly can. Life is super short. I have mentioned that in other videos before, and while I do love Subarus and STIs, I wouldn't mind trying something else. So because I'm in such a fortunate situation where I do have the truck, the STI just doesn't make as much sense anymore. I don't necessarily need 4 doors. I don't need something so practical. The truck is incredibly practical for my lifestyle. And the STI, while it's a fantastic weekend fun car, the way it's put together, having the truck opened the doors for me and allowed me to start looking at cars that I necessarily wouldn't be able to consider. I'm a dad, I have 3 kids, so having something really practical like the F-150 is important to me. And the STI just doesn't really fit my life anymore. Now, I'm not saying 4-door cars doesn't make sense as a fun car. I just don't see the practicality in it as I once did. It's still a fantastic car, as I mentioned, and it's still a lot of fun. But like I said, having the truck and having something else to drive really opened the doors up to consider cars I've never been able to consider before. And what I mean by that is 2 doors, possibly even 2 seats, rear-wheel drive, just something completely different than the STI. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a few cars on my list that are actually still 4 doors, and that's just because I prefer the look of them. But let's get into the cars that I am considering as a replacement for the STI. Now, I will say that you guys probably know I am looking to get into or back into another German car. If you guys have been following me for a very, very long time, you guys know that I owned a 2004 E46 M3. That is what the M flag on the wall is from. I owned that car for 4 years, absolutely loved it, and it's one of those cars that is still stuck in my mind. I compare it to every single car I ever drive. It's just one of those things that if you've ever experienced or driven or owned an M car, it's very, very hard to get out of your mind. They're truly special types of cars, and when I sold it, I honestly never thought I would be in a position to be able to get another M car. Me being a father and a husband and everything and having other responsibilities in life, you really start to think differently, and to think that I'm in a position at this point now, after owning this amazing STI, to get back into an M3 is pretty incredible. So there's a couple different brands that I'm considering, mainly just two, but let's go over the first one. BMW. You guys probably guessed that. It's really no surprise. As I mentioned, I'm a big M3 fan, so it's very, very hard to not consider BMW. The first BMW that I am considering is the BMW F80 M3. This is a car that I absolutely love. I think it is one of the best looking cars on the road today out of everything. Every single angle, every single part of that car, I absolutely love. The S55 motor is a great, great motor. It has lots of power, lots of torque. It's very tunable. The aftermarket support is huge. You can do a lot with those cars and have a lot of fun. Granted, the S55 is known to not really sound that great, but aftermarket options have come out like the Active AutoWorks Equal-Length Mid-Pipe to help tone down that annoying raspy sound that the S55 makes. But as you guys know, I'm a huge exhaust fanatic, so I am very, very determined to find an exhaust setup that works for me. But the F80 M3 is definitely something that is on my list. Another car that I'm considering by BMW is 2 generations ago. It's actually the E90 M3. These cars are fantastic. I understand they're not the fastest thing in the world. In fact, my STI has more power than an E90 M3, but it is equipped with the S65 V8 motor. It's naturally aspirated. That car and that package is probably one of the coolest things BMW has ever done. It is just a high revving, naturally aspirated German V8. The thing sounds incredible, and honestly I think it looks amazing, especially when you modify it just a little bit. Me personally, I'm a bigger fan of the E90, which is the sedan variant. The E92 does look good, but I prefer the E90. They actually only made the E90 M3 from 2008 to 2011. They stopped production after that. The E92 continued on to 2013, but even so, I think it is a fantastic looking car, and I prefer the look of the E90, the rear end of it, over the E92. So most likely I'd be going after a really, really clean example of an E90 M3. Another BMW that I am considering is an M2. You guys saw me experience an F87 M2 on the channel. I drove that for a full week, doing everything that I normally do with my cars. Daily drive it, go to the gym, do basic stuff, have fun on some back roads, do some videos on it, obviously wash it in the garage. I did just about everything, and I fell in love with that car. And the main reason that I did was because it reminded me so much of my E46 M3. The overall size of it, it being 2 doors and rear wheel drive, just the nimbleness and just how easy it was to throw into corners and everything, it just reminded me so much of that car. Now personally, I'd probably go after the F87 M2 competition, which is actually the same motor that is in the F80 and F82, or in F83 M3. That is the S55 motor, so it's kind of the best version of that car. Yes, there is the CS version of it as well, which is kind of the send-off of the F87 M2, but either way, I'll be going for an F87 M2 competition. They're fantastic cars, very simple. That is one of the things I loved about it as well. And I'm definitely considering it, and it is on my list. All right, so we talked about BMW. We went over the 3 different variants or M cars that I'm interested in. Yes, the G80 M3 is fantastic, but I feel like that car, after experiencing it, is a good all-in-one car. It's something that if I didn't have the truck and I was selling the STI, that is definitely a good contender. But for me and what I'm looking for, the G80 M3 is just not for me at this moment. I do not like the G82, which is the M4, the 2-door version. The G80 just looks so much better in my eyes. But either way, great car, but just not for me at this time. So let's go into another German brand that you guys know that I'm very interested in, and that is Porsche. You guys saw me test for a week a Porsche Carrera T. You guys saw me kind of take a spin in my friend's 997 Carrera S. So I have some seat time with these cars, and I absolutely love them. There's no surprise there. I talk about them all the time. And for me, in my life, the end goal is to be in a Porsche. I would love to be in a GT3, GT4, GT3 RS, GT4 RS, some type of GT Porsche at some point in my life. That is a car that honestly, if I ever was fortunate to be able to get one of those, It's something that I feel like is the end game for me. I'm not interested in McLarens, Ferraris, Lamborghinis. Those cars are great, they're cool, but they just don't do it for me. I'm not interested in them whatsoever. I am more interested in something that is going to give me a great driver experience, and something that is just geared straight for the driver. Porsche is just it. That's what they make these cars for. They're not the fastest cars in the world, and heck, they're not even the best looking cars in the world. I mean, for me, I think they are. But to most people, a Lamborghini at a car show is going to get more attention than just a basic GT3. It's just facts, you know. It's more flashy and everything, but that's just not who I am. A Porsche GT car is just where I want to be in life. And while I would love to tell you guys and love to say, screw it, let's go get a GT3, I'm just not in a point in my life where I feel 100% comfortable spending that kind of money. Yes, I can go out and get one, but me being a father, me being a husband, me having other responsibilities in life other than cars, you know, the logical sense of me is saying no, wait a couple years, we'll see what happens then. And it would be my first Porsche. It would be my first kind of car like that. And I don't want to taint my mindset where I get into such a ridiculous car right after the STI that I didn't really experience anything in the middle. For me, I love progress. I love taking the necessary steps to get to where I want to be. While it's great to just go all the way to the top, I honestly just don't think the people that jump straight to the top can appreciate cars as much as they do as somebody that saves their whole life or works their way up in the car world to get to that point. So for me, I'm taking my time. I'm doing my due diligence, just like I did with this car, you know, doing all the exhausts and everything. I'm able to formulate a proper opinion and give some feedback. And if I went straight to a GT3 or GT type of car, you know, granted they're amazing cars, I wouldn't have that experience and just see how much better each variant is. So saying that, let's get into the Porsches that I'm interested in and are on my list. So for the fun car, I'm looking for something that's special, something that's going to give me a really fun driving experience. I don't need something that's super practical. So I want something that is going to make me look forward to it, something that is truly a driver's car. And one of those cars that I believe is the Cayman GTS. More specifically, the generation I'm talking about is the 981. The current generation is the 918, but I prefer the previous as it has the 6-cylinder. I think it sounds fantastic. I personally think it's one of the best sounding Porsches that has ever come out, minus GT cars. It is fantastic. It is a 2-seater, 2 doors, rear wheel drive. What's making me not 100% sold on that car is the one thing I don't like about Caymans is the rear end. I love the front. I love the interior. The interior is actually the same as the 911. However, I'm just not crazy about the rear end. Something about it just doesn't click with me. I do like the GT4 and the GT4 RS with the wing. I do think that car does need a wing, so it does look better when that is on there. However, I'm not 100% sold on it. However, I'm in it for the driving experience. I want something that is going to be fun to drive and make me smile. So it's definitely a car on my list, and it's definitely something I'm considering. So a Cayman GTS is kind of the best version of that car. And what I mean by that is the GT4 is fantastic. However, it's a track-oriented car. While it does sound amazing to own one of those, on the street, for what I would be using my fun car for primarily, doesn't make sense. It's one of those cars you need to wind out like crazy. You need a lot of room. The GTS, however, is perfect for the street. It has a lot of low-end torque, a lot of usable power, and personally, I think it is the best mix between the GT4 and just a Cayman S. So it's a perfect trim level that I think would really interest me. I've never driven a Cayman GTS before. I do have it on my list, so hopefully I can get my hands on one and test one out. Now, the number one car that I am after that interests me the most is a Porsche 997.2 Carrera S. Carrera 2S, I should say, which is the rear-wheel drive. I don't want all-wheel drive. I want the 2. I want the rear-wheel drive. The specific spec that I'm after is pretty hard to come by, and of course, naturally, what I like in that car is a very, very desirable spec. So it's hard to find, and when you do find it, it goes very quickly, and it's very expensive. And the quick specs that I'm looking for are a Guards Red with the factory aero package. I think that is a necessity. These cars look fantastic with them. Has to be manual. I do not want PDK. And obviously I want something that is well taken care of, that has lower mileage, and they're very, very hard to come by. Now the Guards red color, it's just something that I have loved so much on that car, on that chassis. I think it looks fantastic. I have a great vision of that car, how I modify it, some great wheels, great exhaust and everything. And mentally I'm there. I know exactly what I want, so it would be such an easy build for me. Just because I have that vision, I caught it. But that specific spec is very hard to find. I would kind of lean a little bit on the color. I do love Guards red the most. I am finding a lot of black ones in that spec, but I do not want to own a black fun car. My truck is black. It's a pain in the butt to keep clean. Although if I did come across something really special like that wasn't Guards red, I would entertain it for sure, because any color in that spec in that car looks fantastic. Now, just real quick, what a .2 is, it's just the refresh of that generation of that chassis. A 997.1 was from 2005 to 2008, and then a 997.2 is from 2009 to 2012. So the .2 is kind of the best version of that chassis. They did some updates, interior looks nicer, they did nicer taillights, have nicer headlights, and overall it's just a better car. Yes, they are more expensive obviously than the .1s, but overall it's definitely something that I am 100% really interested in, and to be honest, I think that is the number one for me. Obviously, after driving my buddy's 991 Carrera T, they left an impression in me. It was a beautiful car. However, the price of those things right now are still pretty crazy. The market on them is high, and I'm not sure if I would be able to find something that kind of suits me and that is to my spec. For the kind of budget that I'm looking for. Obviously, there's some really nice examples out there, but they do cost. But I am considering a 991.1 Carrera S. They're kind of in the same price category as the 997.2 Carrera S. So we will see. You know, obviously right now it's winter, it's cold. A lot of people don't sell cars at this point. So we'll see once the warmer months come back around. Maybe something will pop up, but I'm definitely keeping my eyes open for that special Porsche. Now that we talked about the main cars that are on my list, I'm sure most of you are asking, there are some other cars out there, how come you're not considering them? Well, there's two cars that are not German that I am considering. One of which is American, and that is the Shelby GT 350. Fantastic car. The motor is fantastic. It sounds great. The only thing for me with that car is I feel like I would enjoy it for about a year, and then I would want to sell it. Now, I could be completely wrong with that, and if I ended up getting one, my mind may change. It does sound good. I do think they look great. However, I just feel like it's one of those cars that I would just be like, okay, it's great, now what? And that is hard to say because I've never owned one before. I've actually never driven one. So if I can get my hands on one, that would be great. However, I just don't feel 100% on it, but it is on my list and I would like to try it out. Last but not least, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't considering the new 2023 Honda Type R. I love the FK8. I think they looked great. I was not a fan of the rear end. I do feel like it was overstyled. My buddy has one. It was actually on the channel before. It drove great. It surprised me how well it handled and how quick that car felt. Overall, it was a very, very nice car. But when I saw the FL5 and just how kind of toned down it was, and then hearing people that actually got to drive the new FL5, I did hear some feedback and everything, and it's a better car overall. And seeing the new styling of it, it's definitely my cup of tea. However, I've never owned a Honda before. I'm not a big Honda person. I mean, I don't know. Again, I've never owned one, so I'm not really 100% sure. But either way, I almost feel like the Civic Type R is kind of a lateral move. What I was talking about earlier, you know, going from a very similar car to another similar car. Although it is different, it's front wheel drive. It's a Honda, which I've never experienced before. I've driven them before, but I've never owned one. So I don't know. I do think they look great, and I've seen quite a few of them modified now, lowered with some TEs on there, and they look very, very good. But we'll see. Right now, obviously, they're just about to start coming out, so dealers are going to be marking them up like crazy, and you will never catch me paying over MSRP for a car. I don't care who you are. It is the dumbest thing to do because you're never going to get that money back unless you're made of money and you can do it. That's totally fine. But for people like us, it just doesn't make sense. So we'll see how the market goes, but it's definitely something I'm interested in, and I would love to get my hands on one just to test one and try it out. So those are the cars I'm considering. I'm glad I was able to sit down and make this video. Again, when people ask me, I just never answered or I said I wasn't sure, and that was true because I wasn't. Now, ultimately, it's going to come down to my decision and what makes sense for me. I'm going to make that decision based on my own thoughts and what I want in life and what I want in a car. However, you guys know that I do this as a form of therapy. It's a good way for me to talk cars. It's a way for me to get out of my own head, talk to you guys, bounce some ideas off of you, and hear your opinions. Like I said, it's still going to ultimately come up to what I decide on, but it's always nice to hear other people's mindsets. Been a million times when I've asked some questions and you guys gave me some really solid answers. And it ultimately led me to decide on certain modifications for this car. And it's going to be the same thing with this. I love hearing you guys' feedback and hearing what you think. You guys may even name some options or some other cars that I haven't considered. And you know, who knows? Maybe I'll end up looking into them more, end up liking them, and then end up buying one. Who knows? And I do think it's a good idea to kind of go over this because I want to take you guys along from the start of the new car. Literally from day one, even right now, just discussing this. It's good to document it and see where my life has progressed over time. It's amazing to look back on the videos of the STI and even all my other cars that I put on the channel in the past. It's so cool to see the progression of them, see where I was in life and everything with that specific car. It's so cool to see the progression. Doing this video, explaining my thought process behind the next car, it's exciting to me. And it's gonna be so cool to come back to this whenever I do decide on a car and kind of hear my thoughts. Who knows, it may be something that I didn't even name in this video, but either way, I love to document things. I love to kind of share my journey with my cars, and this is just the start. This is the beginning. I didn't get a chance to do that with this car. I started about 3 years into ownership with this car, with the videos. So with this next one, I wanna start from day one, from right now, talking about my thoughts, where I kind of want to be, and the list of cars that I'm considering. So that's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Bounce some ideas off of each other. Help me out. Get my mind going. It's definitely going to help. And I appreciate all the comments in advance. I know you guys will give me some valid feedback and some valid opinions. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. But that's it for this one, guys. If you have any questions at all, be sure to ask them below. In the meantime, keep it clean, keep it simple, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.